to my group. I just wanted to record a little video just to review our current render settings for the Maya files and how to get those renders into Nuke, and review a little bit of the Nuke tools. We have a couple of existing Nuke tools. We may be introducing more if we have time, but we just have two at the moment, so I'll go over the settings for those and how to get the proper imports for that. So if you see, we have a file open. This is 10:30. Characters walking up the stairs, admiring the house. So when your scene is ready to render, all of the lighting has been done, animation's been done, or whatever step in the pipeline you need to render. We're going to go up to the render settings, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this to be one number up. We're going to make sure it's S whatever shot underscore version number for the version, and then underscore. And a new thing that we're re-implementing in our pipeline after taking it out is we're going to be rendering in EXRs again. So when you open the file, it will likely look like this, because we went through changing all of our renders to PNGs to try to fix that render issue we had back in November. But we're going back to EXRs for our final renders for compositing. You want to make sure that on EXR, and then merge AOVs is turned on. That means that when you import things into Nuke, you only have to import one version of the image instead of having to import like the beauty pass, the ZDepth pass, whatever else is going to be going into the AOVs. It will combine all of them into one image. You also want to make sure it's on use view transform, name.number.extension. You want to double check the frame ranges. Make sure it's set to whatever the shot cam in the file is. It might be called shot cam, it might be called render cam, whichever one is the official camera for that for this scene. Just pick that one. 1080, all of the normal things that everybody knows, but just for viewing step by step. Currently our render settings are at 5, 4, 2, 1, 1. And then we will also go through the imager, since this is also on here. This is something that Jeremy showed me. I previously looked into denoising, but I was a little confused by it, but he actually showed me a much better way to do it. And so what we do is, let's remove it and pretend we're starting from scratch, maybe. There we go. Okay, so you go down to this imager tab, and it's not going to have whatever scene you're working in won't have it existing in RA. So you need to add imager, and then do AI imager denoiser, and it'll be this one. So it just put that top one in because I already had one in the scene. But if you're making a brand new one, it'll be the one that's just called Denoiser Optix. This guy. And then you're going to go into the settings of the denoiser Optix, and make sure that blend is set to 0.5. What this does is, let's see, nope, I don't need that either. What this denoiser does is basically it takes the render, and it uses like an Arnold tool to denoise it. And what it does is it kind of blurs the image a little bit and kind of creates a little bit of distortion. But if you turn it down so it only blends like halfway, what it does is it like really reduces the noise and any popping fireflies from the render, and kind of smooths it over. But we don't want the super smooth version of the render. We want like both the crisp version and the smooth version, so that it's blending together to reduce as much noise as possible while also not reducing overall image quality. So just make sure it's set at 0.5. And then for AOVs, I've been testing a little bit. We definitely want RGBA, that's like the beauty pass. And then Z, crypto material, volume direct, and volume opacity. I don't know if we'll have time to get to using the volume direct and volume opacity for our renders. But I did look at them and I think that they will work. And we basically get AOVs kind of for free, so they shouldn't add too much render time, if any. So hopefully that'll be okay. If we start adding renders to the farm and we see that it's taking super long, we can cross that bridge when we get there, I guess. But I can show you what each one of these do. But basically, when you come into the AOVs kind of menu, it'll look like this. You just want to grab the Z and select it, and then press this little button that just pops it over here. So this is the depth pass, and this crypto material we also want, and then volume direct and volume opacity. I can show you guys what those do. So obviously this is our beauty render. This is the Z-depth pass. Don't be alarmed. It's supposed to look white. So basically it looks white, but each pixel has information encoded into each pixel of how far away whatever is in camera at that exact point is from the camera. And then crypto material, I think, would be a good thing to have, just in case we have any shots where we want to really pop the character off the background or select any particular item in the scene in order to like change like contrast or color, to be able to easily select it. Like the character all one material, so it'd be really easy to just mask him and then pop him off the background if we needed to up the contrast on him in whatever shot. The volume direct basically has the light that's passing through the volume, so you can see like it's got sun rays that are coming from this direction. They're very faint, but they will be able to be masked and played with in compositing in Nuke. And then volume opacity does a little bit more of like, it looks kind of similar to what the depth pass is. It just shows like how much of the volume is being rendered at any depth point in time, which could be helpful. So that's all. The most important one that absolutely should be in this file is Z. But I think these would be helpful if we have time for them. But that's all. So if you have all of these settings turned on, everything is correct, you can go into deadline, open deadline, and it takes a little bit of time to open. There we go. It's got the shot number on it. Then we select the shot cam, the frame range is correct, 1 frame per task. And then we go in and select whatever folder it belongs in. So this is Act 1 Intro, S1030. We're going to make a new folder, S1030 render underscore V10. Select that folder, and then just submit job. It'll ask you to save. All right, and then just so we can double check, we can open up deadline and double check that it did just submit. So this is S1030. I just submitted a job earlier, but it should be working on finding computers for it. As per normal rendering. Everybody knows this, but just in case, I wanted to put all the steps again. And then it'll work on rendering. However, I have already rendered this shot, so I wanted to go into Nuke and then review the Nuke specific things. So open Nuke, whatever version of Nuke is on your computer. every computer kind of has a different version. And then so currently our Nuke files live on the X drive in our folder within the Nuke Studio, and then I believe it's in these folders, just the ones that are named for the shot name, and then you go into Nuke, and then you go into script, and then you just pick the most recent one. Let's go with, all right, I'm back, and I made sure that we've got the right version of the file up. So we have two tools. The first one is a Firefly tool, and it's super easy. All you gotta do is just copy and paste it in. All right, it looks like it's opening up. All right, so we've got our file open, and we've got this nice file structure, and for reviewing the nodes, let's just pretend that we're can I grab all of them, please? Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna tear these off and pretend that we're starting from scratch like this. And I believe most of the files should so far have the Firefly killer gizmo that Carl put in. But just in case it doesn't, if you open up a Nuke file and it looks like this, the Firefly killer lives in the Mothman Nuke Tools folder. It's called Firefly Killer, and what you do is you open up the Firefly killer thing, but you have to go into all files to select it. And then you just open that, and it opens as a text document script, and then you just Control A, Control C, Control V to paste it right into the Nuke file, and then you just want to make sure that it's connected in this line and make sure that it's going into the image input. You can just drag it over the line and it'll connect. And what that does is it identifies like really bright singular pixels, and it just brings those down a little bit because mostly those are going to be very noisy in renders from frame to frame, and it'll pop out, and we just want to try to reduce that as much as possible. And the default settings are pretty good. I don't think that they need to be messed with for most shots. If we come across a shot that's just super noisy, popping with fireflies, we can address that then. But the default should be pretty okay. And just for anyone who didn't take the Nuke class, in order to view a different item in the structure, you just you select it and then press 1. And it'll drag the viewer over to whatever node you have selected. And then for the defocus node, we're going to do tab and then plop down a ZDefocus node and drag that into the line, and it'll make everything super blurry. And so for the settings for this, we want to make sure this is on depth Z. The math is for depth, and then this output window determines what is shown here. So right now it's got result, but we can also look at the focal plane setup to show what is in focus and what is not in focus. And so what we do is just grab this focal point and move it around, and then we can, there it is. So this controller right here controls what is like the ultimate focus of the shot. So anything that's red will be blurry and anything that's blue will be blurry. But this right here is what's in focus, and you can drag it around. If you want this bush to be in focus, it could be super in focus. If you wanted way back here to be in focus, you could have that in focus. But for the most part, unless otherwise decided on, we want the character to be in focus. So we're going to grab that, and then we can go back to the result and see how that looks. And then I believe, yeah, this slider changes how much it is in focus or not. I think the default is 5, which is pretty good. What does it look like when we set it to 10? I guess it really depends on the shot, but I'd say anywhere between like 5 and 10. Let's go with like 7.5 for this shot. Just make it nice and in between. And then I believe only other setting that you have to change on here is I turned on bloom. Which I don't know if you can tell, but like right here, anywhere where it's defocusing the foreground and background, it'll just kind of pop those highlights a little bit. And the default seems to be pretty okay. Let's see. Actually, I might want to mess with the focal plane a little bit more, make it a little bit more specific. Let's see what that does to our render. Let's see. So I'm pressing D on this node to enable it and disable it. Just grabbing a little bit of this grass here. It looks like it's blurring this background a little bit. Let's see. Let me remember what this slider does. Can't quite remember. Doesn't look like it's doing anything, so let's just not touch it. Let's see. Does it blur the background more? Ooh. That's kind of nice. It's a little bit much though. The more that you have blurred around the focal point, the smaller that it's going to look. And we don't want to make it look super small because right now it's kind of edging into territory that makes it look kind of like a miniature. Maybe let's try this 10. Sorry, I said 7.5, but I think that'll look okay. Let's go with 10 for this shot, but for each shot, let's let it vary, I guess. This is super quick to adjust in post, and then re-render if we need to make adjustments per shot. And then each shot has this color correct node in it. That will probably already be there with some of the lighting corrections. We just look at that. Ooh, this is not in line. Let's just grab that and make sure that this is connected here. If we look at that, now it's got the ZDefocus and the color corrections that just give it kind of more of that warm kind of fall vibe to it. You can toggle them on and off. I think it looks pretty okay. So we'll just go down here to this yellow node called Right. And it's currently on version 6. But you want to version it up to version whatever is next. And then render. And it'll pop out this little window and you just click OK. And then it'll start rendering. And then after it's done rendering, just make sure you save the Nuke comp as the next version up that matches whatever number you just put into the render. And then it'll be updated in Nuke Studio automatically. Okay, so our render is done. So the last thing we want to do is just make sure that we save the comp as the same number that we just rendered out. So we'll save it as 7. and then we save it, and then you're done. That's the end of the tutorial. So the rendered out file should update in Nuke by whoever's got the Nuke file open. Can just alt up and it'll find all of the new versions of the files and it'll load them in. So you don't have to worry about any of that. But yeah. Hopefully that was helpful. Sorry if I went over things that everybody's like, yeah, this is common sense. We all know this. But just in order, just wanted to explain everything again. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful.